Parashat Vayikra introduces us to the intricate laws of sacrifice in the tabernacle, a dizzying list of the offerings that were made and the sins for which they are atoning. We translate the word korban as sacrifice, but it's not the most useful translation. The root of the word korban, kuf resh vet, actually means to draw close. Now, to us moderns, the idea that animal sacrifice is something that would help us draw closer to God is quite strange. But in fact, it was a way of helping the Israelites transition from their lives in Egypt, where pagan sacrifices in pagan temples were part of the culture, to a life and a culture with God following God's laws. Now, animal sacrifices stayed with the Israelites as they traveled through the desert, transitioned into the promised land, and had the first and second temples. But it was always very, very prescribed. It could only be done in a temple, and it could only be led and facilitated by people descended from the Kohen, the priestly and Levitical lines. Now contrast that with the development of prayer, and prayer could be done and led by anyone at any time, in any place. At the moment, many of us find ourselves separated from family and friends, from communities, organizations, and synagogues with which we're normally in fellowship. And at the same time, it can be hard to feel the closeness of community. We're experiencing an exile from our normal way of life while confronting this deathly pandemic. It involves many people making tremendous sacrifices, particularly those on the front lines in medical professions, public service, service industries, and rabbis and cantors and those offering spiritual care. We don't have temple sacrifices, and right now, temporarily, we don't have our normal in-person communities, but we still have the opportunity to draw close through prayer to God and to one another. In the Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed, Maimonides continues his discussion of the transition from sacrifice to prayer and says, all of these restrictions on korbanot, on sacrifices, serve to limit this kind of worship and keep it within the bounds within which God did not think it necessary to abolish sacrificial service altogether. Aval hatfilah v'hatchina hi muteret b'chol makom b'chol mi sheyizdamen. But prayer and supplication, he continues, prayer and supplication can be offered everywhere and by every person. Wherever you are, whoever you are, prayer and supplication can be offered. May God hear our cries and bring a swift resolution to this pandemic for all the world. Shavua Tov from Schechter.